Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. First up, apologies for any background noise going on. There is some gardening going on at a couple of houses in my neighborhood, so there's that. First up, before we get started, I wanted to mention that there is a link to a petition to help stop the unfair removal of titles from Amazon, specifically the titles of indie authors who have the exclusive KDP Kindle Unlimited agreement. And if you could take a couple minutes to either go sign that now or take a couple minutes at the end of the video to go sign it. I believe the number of signatures is currently sitting around 31,100, maybe a little bit more than that, and they're looking for around 35,000, but the more signatures the better, especially. So what exactly is Book of the Month? It is a US-based book subscription box that features 5 to 7 new hardcover books, either from debut authors or from current authors. Before, it was initially just to the US and US citizens, but they've now expanded to Canada as well. As you can see here, this is the main website, and I do have my personal Book of the Month referral link down below in the description if you want to check that out. But let's check out the February books. So Jojo Myers, Someone Else's Shoes, Reversing Me Home, that was my selection for Book of the Month for February. Georgie All Along by Kate Claiborne, The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz, and Mammy by Jessica George. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, so please let me know in the comments down below how to pronounce it. The nice thing with Book of the Month is that you don't have to select just books from that month. You can select up to 3 books, one of them from that specific month, and then you can add 2 add-ons from previous months, from what's popular. So there's a really nice selection of books that you can get from Book of the Month, which is one of the things that I really like about it. Whereas with other bookish subscription boxes, you don't really get a selection in what book or books come in the box and any other bookish merchandise. Again, it's not much of a choice. It's very curated to that book and very curated to whatever genre that bookish box is for. Whereas Book of the Month just covers all books, all genres pretty much. You can also go to the Blue Box Boutique once you've shipped out 3 boxes, and you can get pins, candles, socks, I think a shirt or 2. So there is bookish merchandise that you can choose from, so you're not just getting stuff that maybe you didn't want or wouldn't use. In this video, I'm going to be reading 5 of my 8 Book of the Month books and then ranking some of them. There are 3 books that I'm not going to be reading in this vlog. I can only show 2 of them right now though, because the 3rd is on the way. And that's just due to some previous issues with the book itself. That Book of the Month very willingly worked out with me, which I really loved. Their customer service in relation to that book was really great. And in relation to my issue, that was also really great. So don't be afraid to reach out to Book of the Month if you have an issue with one of your books or your boxes. Just reach out. The worst they can say is no. But here are the 2 books that I won't be reading and that I can show. First up is The Circus Strain by Amita Parikh. And the main reason is because I read this book last year, pretty close to the end of the year. This is for December 2022. So I basically read it in December as well. And I fell in love with this book and I absolutely adore it, even though it's February. I honestly think that right now it's a little too soon to reread it. The second book that I can show is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. I have not read this and I'm not going to read it within this vlog because it is a holiday book. Even though it doesn't really matter when you read books, nothing's too early for me if I need a little bit of Halloween or a little bit of Christmas. It's not too early. But right now, I do not need Christmas. I'm good on Christmas for a little while longer. So I'm going to wait to read this. If I need it later in the year, I need it later in the year. But this book had a really cute concept, which I think I'll like. I've just started to get into more romancy books, which are usually a very hard sell for me. Hopefully this does it for me because I really want to like this one. Now for the books I will be reading. First up is Independence by Chitra, Banerjee, Divakaruni. Please let me know if you know how to pronounce this author's name. I picked this one up because I am really into historical fiction. 1. 2, I am trying to pick up more authors of color, more BIPOC authors. And 3, a historical fiction novel set in India in 1947 seems like the perfect mesh of a story. I feel like this is going to break my heart. I feel like it'll do that in the best way possible and that this book is just going to be so amazing. amazing. Next up is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I have read this before, but I wanted to reread it because I feel like even though I really liked this book and really enjoyed it, I feel like there was some stuff that I maybe missed in my first read. I want to read this as a way to like be like, okay, did I just like it in the moment of reading it, or do I actually still like this book? Next up is Queen of Thieves by Beezy Marsh. There was one reader who I'm mutuals with on Bookstagram, and she didn't like this. So this is one of my mutuals where we're more recent mutuals. So I don't know how well our tastes line up. Hopefully I like this. I think the main thing is that she's like one reader that I'm like in contact with, you know, and friends with on social media that has read this and didn't like it. So it's like, what are the odds for me that I won't like this? But fingers crossed. Please keep your fingers crossed. Next up is Kaikeyi. I'm not saying that right. If you know the proper pronunciation, please let me know in the comments. This is by Vaishnavi Patel, and I'm really looking forward to this one too. This is another book that I, again, should really enjoy, so hopefully I do, because I'm really looking forward to this book. And then lastly, the book that I have started, River, Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. Again, it's a historical fiction that will most likely break my heart, but in the best way. Her search begins with an ending. This is the book I'm starting with, River, Sing Me Home. I'll see you once I finish. Before I get into my thoughts of River Sing Me Home, I wanted to talk about this journal a little bit, the Read and Tell reading journal. The thing that I really like about this journal is its versatility and just the fact that it's something that I can constantly use. Another reading journal that I liked was the A Clockwork Reader reading journal, and I really liked it because it's a physical representation of what I read and something that I can pick up. With that kind of reading journal, surprisingly, I stuck around with that one for so long, for the entire year that I did, basically. But I usually get into this habit of stopping with physical journals pretty soon after I start them, like, and it's not even intentionally like, oh, I'm not going to use this anymore. I just stop using them. But the thing that I like about the reading journal, the Read and Tell digital reading journal, is that there is a lot of versatility to it. I can add pages, I can remove pages if I want, I can copy and paste certain page formats. And this reading journal, the main thing that I really like about it, you can personalize this journal to a very detailed extent. On this page, there's your 5-star reads, and I could technically duplicate this page multiple times for however many 5-star books that I have that I want to include on this page if it ends up being more than 12. And with the Book of the Month page, I can duplicate this page for upcoming years for however long I'm using this reading journal. This was my January library, what I read in January. 2, 3, 4, 5. I read 11 books in January, which was kind of a surprise. And then you have another version of what exactly you read in January, the wrap up, and you can include your specific dates for when you read it. And then you have book reviews, and like with these book review pages, it's very condensed, which is also something that I like about it, because in a lot of like reading journals, like the thoughts pages are really long, and sometimes I only have like a couple of thoughts that I feel like I need to write down. So having like a full page or like half a page for thoughts, very good for me. Like, it's not that it's not good, it's just that like it ends up being too much leftover space. For the book review part, I really like writing out like the title, the synopsis, author, etc. And then for my favorite quote, I just type it in, since there is like the text box feature. Just a note, I am using this on GoodNotes. So I have another book review page set up that's blank. For February, I'm using the green highlighter for the star ratings, and I basically go over it twice, and then I just erase all of the excess. This is usually the end result when it comes to the stars. That usually is a long process for me, but it's something that I enjoy doing. And then I like using blue to select whether or not it's physical, ebook, or audiobook. And then I kind of go through the same process of coloring it in twice and then just erasing the excess, color outside the lines, and then neaten it up, basically. And that's why I personally really like the Read and Tell journal. Both of the reading journals that I mentioned, the Read and Tell digital reading journal and the physical A Clockwork Reader reading journal, are linked down below in the description. I finished River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer, and I absolutely loved this book. It was so heart-wrenching reading about Rachel's story and seeing it unfold and reading about her desperate search for her children. Since I want this video to be pretty much spoiler-free, that's all I'm gonna say. Definitely look up trigger warnings for this though, because there are some pretty heavy topics within this book. So my next read is going to be Queen of Thieves by Beezy Marsh. As I said earlier in this video, I am for the most part looking forward to this book, but I am a little bit nervous considering that the one person that I know has read this did not enjoy it, and I'm pretty sure she DNF'd it pretty early on. We'll see if I like this. But because I'm weird, I'm gonna take the dust jacket off. I'm not taking this book anywhere. It's not going out anywhere. So I usually read my hardcovers at home without the dust jacket because, again, I'm not going anywhere. I usually don't eat at the same time that I'm reading a physical book. This is the really nice thing that I like about Book of the Month books, is that the actual hardcovers underneath the dust jacket are really simple. Like, they obviously have the Book of the Month logo and what month you got it, and then again, Book of the Month logo. It's just so simple. One of my friends who also does Book of the Month just takes the dust jackets off of her books and has it set up that way, and I've been tempted to do it that way, but I don't know what I would do with the dust jackets. I've had a couple of ideas, but I don't want to take the dust jackets off until that's something that I've decided I wanted to do, and until I know what I'm going to do with the dust jackets, because I don't want to just toss them out, and then I don't want to just leave them lying around. So if you have any suggestions of what I could do with the dust jackets, please let me know. A little bit of context before I give you the update. I've always been open to the idea of DNFing books. I've always said if I'm not enjoying a book, I'm going to DNF it. But it's not something that I've done often. So this year is my year where I'm like, if I'm not enjoying it, by minimum at least the first chapter in, and then at the maximum, if I'm not enjoying it by like the 100-page mark, I'm just going to DNF it. I am really sad to say this, but I decided to DNF The Queen of Thieves by Beezy Marsh because I got 11 chapters in. I read 11 chapters, got to page 111, 35% of the way in, basically about to start chapter 12. And I think some of the drama happened too early for the book because there are things going on, but I just feel like some of it just happened too early for the story. Minor spoilers, if you don't want to hear it, I'll have like a text up on the screen and where you can skip to skip the spoiler. So Nell gets pregnant after what seems to be a one-night stand, essentially, and she still loves the guy, Jimmy, and her dad kicks her out once she's caught shoplifting for Alice, our other main character. Or her dad doesn't kick her out, actually, but he locks her up in her room because the officer said, like, yes, she was caught for shoplifting. The people the store owners want to continue to press charges. I don't like the officer because the officer looks at her and is like, isn't there more now? Knowing that she's pregnant, knowing that she got pregnant outside of wedlock, and so she's forced to tell her dad, and of course he doesn't accept it. Her mom is semi-forgiving but sort of has to take her dad's side in this case. So that's the end of the spoiler. And basically all that to say is that a lot of this drama happened too early on, where I feel like it would have been better if it happened later on in the story. Even though the reader knows these things, I feel like it would have been best revealed story-wise to the other characters if it was revealed later on in the story rather than within that first 100 pages. And then after maybe the first 50 or so pages, there was still stuff going on, but I just couldn't really get into it after the first 50 pages, but was still trying because maybe it would start picking up again. And I just really didn't care too much about the characters to stick around either. This is like 100 pages out of a 320-page book, so basically I'm a third of the way in, and things are already starting to come to a head, and it's like, and I just feel like there wasn't that much hope for the next 2/3 of the book if I feel like too much of the action was going on and being revealed within the first third, so I set this one down. I hadn't done a dice roll to choose my next read in a while, and I felt like this might be a good opportunity to do that and explain a little bit about what it is. I honestly think that the best way to do it is to have multiple dice, basically a D&D set of dice, and that way you have a bit more option in which die you're using. You don't necessarily have to just use the 6-sided dice, especially because the 6-sided dice only has up to 6 usually. This way too, by having multiple options for die, by having a D&D set, you can cover all of your physical shelves, however many you have, and you can also cover like any audiobooks that you have or even any ebooks. So the whole premise between a dice roll to find your next read, sort of think of it like the bookshelf scavenger hunt. So basically, if you're looking at a single shelf, you can just choose a single die. It can be any die you want. You basically roll, and whatever number you land on, you count that many books on that single shelf. And if that book is bigger than the number of books you have on your shelf, you can just go back over and start over at the beginning of that shelf until you get to that number. So for example, if you're looking at a single shelf and you landed on 20, but you only have 18 books on that shelf, then you would just count out to 18 and then start over and count 2 more to get to 20. That would be if you were looking at a singular shelf on your physical bookshelf, but that process can also be applied to ebooks or audiobooks. But if you're looking at, let's say, your whole physical bookshelf or bookshelves, in this case you can use 2 dice. And in this example, I'm using these 2, which look very similar, but this one has smaller sides than this one. I have a singular bookshelf that I would use in this example, which has 5 shelves. In this example, I would use 1 die for the shelves themselves and then the other die for the books. So it's basically like a bookshelf scavenger hunt. Let's say I rolled this die to the number 9. In that instance, on my 1 bookshelf, I have 5 shelves. I would count down to 5 and then start back up at the top and count down to 9. It would technically be the 4th shelf. And then I would roll this die, and let's say I just rolled 7 and I have, again, let's say 18 books on the shelf. Then I would just count up to the 7th book that I have on that shelf. And if it's a book that I've already read, then I would just go 1 more book over. But you can also do a die roll where you focus maybe on a specific section of your bookshelves. And you can do that by genre or publisher or author. You can just use a single die and get a number and then count for that author or for that genre or publisher, etc. And in the case of this video, I was just looking at my book of the month section, which is what you'll see in the next clip. But as you saw, my next read is going to be Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. Again, if I'm saying any of that wrong, please let me know in the comments, and please let me know how I can say it right. And I'm really looking forward to this read, especially coming off of Queen of Thieves. And I feel like this book will be one of the ones I really enjoy. I will come back to you when I have the update once I finish. Hopefully this won't be another DNF. I don't think it will, though. Now, as you also saw in that book talk clip before my finger landed on Kaikeyi and showed that that was the book that I landed on, you probably noticed that all my dust jackets are off of my Book of the Month books. And it's because I really enjoy the simplicity of the hardcover books from Book of the Month. I still love the dust jackets themselves, but I really like how simple the actual hardcovers are, as I said. So I'm taking about a week without the dust jackets on. And besides, I usually take the dust jackets off when I'm actually reading the books. So I'm taking about a week to have the dust jackets off of the books themselves, and I'm gonna go from there. After sitting with this book for a little bit longer and with my DNF, I've had some other thoughts, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. First off, I think what kind of triggered something for me, so to say, was that all that drama happening and being revealed within that first third of the book, it almost felt like it was there just for the sake of being there. It was drama for the sake of drama. It felt like it does add something to it, but for it to have all happened within that first third of the book and to be revealed within that first third of the book, it just felt like it was being revealed just for the sake of being revealed, rather than having a revelation of the stuff happening at a point that makes sense for the story. So because of that, it really did feel like that drama for the sake of drama mold, and we're revealing all this drama to like a bunch of the other characters just for the sake of revealing it to those other characters so there can be more drama. I feel like this drama would be beneficial to the story, but we just didn't need to reveal it within the first third. And if you're thinking of this kind of like a play or a movie, we're still in the first act of the book if we're in the first third of the book. And to get all this drama revealed and some of it sort of resolved, it felt too fast, it felt unnecessary, and it just felt like it could have been better placed within the book, because this book is definitely something that I should like and that I very well could like. So I finished Kaikeyi. You can see I did a couple tabs like up to the halfway point. I absolutely loved this book. It was just such a beautiful story, and I honestly think that it's one that everyone should read at least once, or at the very least everyone should try to read this, because it's such a beautiful story about a girl's struggles in the world she grows up in, and it's such a relatable story for women everywhere and girls everywhere. We all just need to read this. Because I only have 2 more books on the TBR pile for this video, I'm going to start off with Independence by Chitra, Banerjee, Divakaruni. Saying her name wrong, please correct me in the comments. I'm going to start off with this book, and then I'm going to finish off with The Paris Apartment. I finished Independence, and it was honestly such a beautiful book, a beautiful story. I found all 3 sisters, Deepa, Gemini, and Priya, so relatable on various different levels for various different reasons. And their bond and their story over time was just so beautiful and just so touching and heart-wrenching. I definitely recommend this as a read. But now I'm moving on to The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This is a reread for me to see if I decide if I liked it, or if I just liked it in the moment during my first read. I'll also be deciding if I want to continue to hold on to this after this reread, or if I want to try to get rid of it, either through selling it on Mercari or Pango Books or donating it. We'll see. I am considering doing a video about the etiquette of selling books on apps like Mercari and Pango Books. This is something that I have talked about a little bit on my TikTok, my Book Talk account. If I find the video, I'll link it down below in the description. There is a certain etiquette to selling books on apps like Mercari and Pango Books, which is something that I could definitely talk about more here. And as I said, I am thinking about doing a separate video for that. So if that's something you want to see, comment down below. So I've decided that in this reread, I am DNFing The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I think this really was I enjoyed it the first time I read it, but this time trying to get into it again, it's just That beginning part is just a little too slower than I remembered it being. And it's not that that slowness was bad. A part of me was just expecting something along with the slowness. Again, like just slower than I remembered, not exactly everything that I remembered it to be. I was at page 100 of 356, so pretty much a third of the way through, almost a third of the way through. And I honestly just think that this book isn't necessarily for me, even though I did enjoy it during that first read. After trying to reread it and sitting with it for a while, I honestly just don't think it's for me. Now let's rate the Book of the Month books that I've read. I will be including the 2 DNFs, The Paris Apartment and The Queen of Thieves, even though I DNF'd them pretty early on within the first third of the book, because this is my video and I can do that. I'm going to go from least favorite to favorites, and of course these are only 6 of the 7 Book of the Month books that I have. I have 4 of the books on the way. 1 is a replacement book, and the other 3 are my March box, my March 2023 box. For those 4 books, I'm going to do another video, an unboxing video basically, so I will show those books and talk about those books in my next video. But at the time that I'm recording this, I have 7 Book of the Month books, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm pretty sure I did not read The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox, because this is a holiday book, Christmas book, and I want to save it for a bit later in the year, either when I need Christmas later in the year or closer to Christmas, probably like November, December. Now to rank the books from least favorite to favorite. These are my opinions, as I hope you would understand. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me, but these are my opinions. I will say though that for the 4 books that I read through, I didn't have a least favorite, so to say. I enjoyed them all, but I am ranking those 4 books based on my enjoyment of them. At the bottom of this list is Queen of Thieves by Beezy Marsh, and then The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This is slightly above Queen of Thieves because for me this was was slightly more interesting even though I DNF'd it, and this did have a better pacing than Queen of Thieves. In fourth spot is Independence by Chitra, Banerjee, Divakaruni. If I said her name wrong at any point in this video, please correct me in the comments. In third spot is River Sing Me Home by Eleanor, Shearer. Second place is Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. Again, correct me if I'm mispronouncing the names. In first place is The Circus Train by Amita, Parikh. This was a book I did not read in this video because I had already read it at the end of 2022. Just a little reminder before wrapping up that the link to help KDP authors on Amazon is down below in the description. It's at the very top of the description, so if you still need to sign it, it would greatly help so many authors who have to use Amazon and have to sign the Kindle Unlimited contract and the KDP contract. It would help them so much if we get a lot of signatures for that petition. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for my next video.